Did you know California holds nearly one-third of the entire homeless population in the United States? That's more than any other state by far. Every night, over 170,000 people in California sleep on sidewalks, in cars, or inside makeshift tents. The situation has become so overwhelming that some cities are warning their streets are literally collapsing under the pressure. But here's the shocking truth. This crisis isn't just about poverty. It's a storm of hidden causes, from housing costs and mental health struggles to inequality and political gridlock. So, what's really driving California's homelessness wave, and why does it feel like nothing is working? Stay with us, because the answers may surprise you more than you think. Number 1. Skyrocketing housing costs. When people talk about homelessness in California, the first reason that almost always comes up is the insane cost of housing. California is home to some of the most expensive cities in the world. In places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, the average rent for even a small one-bedroom apartment can push past $3,000 a month. To put that into perspective, you would need to earn more than $120,000 a year just to afford that without being rent-burdened. For the average worker, that's simply impossible. The math doesn't add up, and people are being priced out of their own communities. But here's where it gets even worse. The problem isn't only about expensive rent, it's about wages that haven't kept up. Many Californians are working full-time jobs, sometimes even 2 or 3 jobs, yet they still can't cover basic living costs. Experts call this the affordability gap, where wages lag far behind housing prices. Imagine working 40 hours a week and still not being able to keep a roof over your head. That reality pushes thousands onto the streets every year, and once you're out, getting back into stable housing is nearly impossible without savings or support. Studies have shown that when rent rises beyond 30% of someone's income, the risk of becoming homeless skyrockets. In California, it's not unusual for people to spend 50, even 60% of their paycheck just to keep a place to sleep. And remember, that doesn't include food, gas, or medical bills. It's no wonder that so many are slipping through the cracks. The truth is clear. When housing becomes a luxury instead of a necessity, homelessness explodes. That's why skyrocketing housing costs are considered the #1 driver of California's homelessness crisis. Number 2. A shortage of affordable housing. Now, even if rent weren't sky high, California would still face another massive challenge. There simply isn't enough affordable housing to meet the demand. For every 100 extremely low-income households in California, only about 23 affordable rental homes actually exist. That means more than 3/4 of the people who desperately need affordable housing will never find it, no matter how hard they try. It's a supply and demand disaster, and when there aren't enough homes to go around, the most vulnerable are left with nothing. One reason for this shortage is decades of underbuilding. California's population has grown rapidly, yet housing development has lagged behind due to restrictive zoning laws, expensive land costs, and long approval processes. On top of that, many communities fight against new affordable housing projects because of fears about property values or safety, a mindset often summed up as, "not in my backyard." This resistance slows construction and ensures the crisis only deepens year after year. What makes this even more alarming is how this shortage affects families. Many are forced to live in overcrowded apartments, sometimes with multiple families sharing the same small space. Others are pushed far outside the cities where they work, spending hours commuting just to keep a job. And for those who can't afford even these options, the streets become the only place left. Experts agree, without a dramatic increase in affordable housing construction, California's homelessness problem will never be solved. It isn't just about expensive rent, it's about the fact that there aren't enough doors to open in the first place. Number 3. Mental health challenges. A major driver of California's homelessness crisis is the mental health epidemic that too often goes untreated. Studies reveal that nearly 1 in 4 people living on the streets struggles with a serious mental illness. Conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and severe depression make it incredibly difficult for individuals to hold a steady job, maintain housing, or even navigate daily life. Without consistent treatment or support, many slip through the cracks and end up in shelters, hospitals, or directly on the streets. But the challenge doesn't stop there. Once someone is homeless, mental health often declines even further. Imagine trying to manage anxiety or paranoia while sleeping on a sidewalk surrounded by noise, danger, and uncertainty. Accessing therapy or medication becomes almost impossible without a stable address, insurance, or reliable transportation. It's a vicious cycle. Poor mental health leads to homelessness, and homelessness makes mental health worse. Each feeds the other until it feels like there's no way out. California has invested billions into homeless programs, but critics argue that too little of that money goes toward mental health infrastructure. While temporary shelters may provide a bed, they don't always provide the long-term psychiatric care people need to get back on their feet. Without treatment, many end up cycling through jails, hospitals, and the streets. Experts agree, solving homelessness isn't just about housing, it's also about healing minds. Until mental health care is treated as a core part of the solution, thousands will remain trapped in this endless loop. We put an incredible amount of effort into creating these videos, and your support means the world. So, if you found this eye-opening, please hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it helps us keep making more seeking content like this. And tell us in the comments, what do you think is the most overlooked cause of homelessness in California? Number 4. Substance abuse and addiction. Another powerful factor driving California's homelessness crisis is the deep link between substance abuse and life on the streets. Studies estimate that nearly 40% of unhoused individuals struggle with some form of substance dependence. But here's the truth many overlook. Addiction doesn't always cause homelessness. Often it develops after people are already living on the streets. When someone loses their home, their job, and their stability, drugs or alcohol can become a way to cope with the trauma, the cold nights, and the constant stress of survival. Unfortunately, once substance abuse takes hold, it creates a cycle that is brutally hard to escape. Addiction can make it even more difficult to hold a job, maintain relationships, or follow through with housing opportunities. At the same time, homelessness exposes people to environments where drugs are more accessible than food or clean water. This dangerous mix keeps many stuck in a downward spiral, where every day becomes a fight just to survive, often at the cost of long-term recovery. While California spends billions on homelessness programs, many experts argue that not enough funding goes directly toward rehabilitation and recovery services. Emergency shelters may provide a bed, but they rarely provide detox programs, counseling, or ongoing treatment. Without addressing the root issue of addiction, people are often forced back onto the streets, repeating the cycle again and again. To truly reduce homelessness, solutions must go beyond temporary fixes and offer real paths to recovery, giving people the tools to rebuild their lives. Number 5. Unemployment and underemployment. When people imagine homelessness, they often assume it's only about unemployment, but in California, the story is far more complex. Yes, there are those without jobs, but there are also thousands of people who are working full-time and still can't afford a place to live. This is the harsh reality of underemployment. People may have jobs, sometimes 2 or 3, but the wages simply don't keep up with the staggering cost of living in California. For many, the math just doesn't work. Consider this. If you earn minimum wage in California, you would need to work more than 120 hours a week just to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment. That's physically impossible. And even for those earning above minimum wage, rising rent, food costs, and gas prices often leave nothing left at the end of the month. Families living paycheck to paycheck are one medical bill or car repair away from losing everything. The margin for error is razor thin, and when life throws a curveball, homelessness becomes the devastating result. The unemployment issue is also tied to industries that have disappeared or shifted. Many middle-income jobs in manufacturing and service sectors have vanished, replaced with low-paying gig economy work. At the same time, high-paying jobs in tech have driven housing costs through the roof, widening the gap between the wealthy and everyone else. Without enough stable, well-paying jobs, thousands of Californians are left behind. The truth is clear. Homelessness isn't just about not working. It's about a broken system where work doesn't guarantee stability anymore. Number 6. System failures in foster care and prisons. One of the most overlooked drivers of homelessness in California is the way our systems fail people at critical turning points, especially those leaving foster care or being released from prison. For many, these transitions should be a chance to start fresh, but instead, they often lead straight to the streets. Studies show that nearly 50% of foster youth experience homelessness by age 26. After growing up without a permanent family or stable support system, many leave foster care with nowhere to go, no savings, and no one to rely on. It's like being pushed into adulthood without a safety net. The prison system has a similar impact. Every year, thousands of people are released from California's prisons with little more than the clothes on their back. Without job training, housing assistance, or community reintegration programs, many end up homeless almost immediately. And the problem doesn't end there. Those who are homeless are more likely to be rearrested for minor offenses like loitering or trespassing, leading them right back into prison. It's a revolving door where homelessness and incarceration feed into each other. These failures highlight a bigger issue. When society doesn't provide support during life's most vulnerable transitions, people fall through the cracks. A young adult leaving foster care should have a stable place to live and a chance at a job. A person leaving prison should be given tools to reintegrate, not abandoned to the streets. Until these systemic gaps are closed, California's homeless population will continue to grow, fueled by people who never truly had a fair shot at stability in the first place. Number 7. Natural disasters and climate change. Another powerful but often underestimated factor in California's homelessness crisis is the role of natural disasters and climate change. California has faced devastating wildfires, flash floods, and extreme heat waves in recent years. Each disaster destroys thousands of homes, forcing families to evacuate, sometimes permanently. And here's the hard truth. Not everyone has insurance or enough savings to rebuild. For those living paycheck to paycheck, one wildfire can erase everything they own in a single night. The problem doesn't end when the fire is out or the floodwaters recede. Families without adequate insurance often have to rely on temporary shelters, motels, or relatives' couches. But when those options run out, many end up on the streets. In fact, researchers have found that natural disasters often trigger sudden spikes in homelessness. Add to that the rising cost of rebuilding, construction delays, and insurance companies pulling out of fire-prone areas, and the path back to stable housing becomes nearly impossible for many Californians. Climate change makes this even worse. As temperatures rise and weather becomes more extreme, disasters are expected to happen more often and with greater intensity. This means more homes at risk, more communities displaced, and more people vulnerable to homelessness. California's homelessness crisis isn't only a social or economic issue, it's also an environmental one, tied directly to the changing climate. Until disaster preparedness and recovery programs become stronger and more accessible, thousands will continue to be pushed from natural disasters straight into homelessness. Number 8. NIMBYism. Not in my backyard. One of the most frustrating barriers to solving homelessness in California is something called NIMBYism, which stands for Not in My Backyard. On paper, many people agree that affordable housing and shelters are urgently needed. But when it comes time to build those projects in their neighborhoods, opposition often explodes. Residents argue that shelters will bring crime, lower property values, or ruin the character of their community. As a result, countless projects get stalled, delayed, or canceled entirely. This resistance has real consequences. Every year, California sets aside billions for affordable housing initiatives, yet far fewer units are built than promised. Why? Because public hearings, lawsuits, and neighborhood pushback drag out the process for years. While cities argue and communities resist, the homeless population continues to grow, and people are left sleeping on sidewalks. It's a battle between compassion in theory and resistance in practice, and sadly, resistance often wins. Experts say NIMBYism is one of the biggest reasons California can't keep up with the demand for housing. Without widespread acceptance that affordable housing belongs in every neighborhood, progress will remain painfully slow. The irony is that many residents who resist housing projects also complain about the growing number of homeless encampments in their city. Yet by blocking solutions, they help fuel the very problem they want solved. Unless attitudes shift and affordable housing becomes seen as a community responsibility rather than a burden, California's homelessness crisis will remain stuck in a cycle of delay and frustration. Number 9. Insufficient mental health rehab infrastructure. Even when California does spend money to address homelessness, a major problem remains. Much of the funding is funneled into temporary shelters rather than long-term solutions. Shelters may provide a bed for the night, but they don't fix the deeper issues that keep people trapped in homelessness, like mental illness, trauma, or substance abuse. Without access to proper treatment programs, people often cycle in and out of shelters, jails, and hospitals, never breaking free from the cycle. California once had more robust mental health facilities, but decades of budget cuts and closures have left the state with a huge gap in care. Today, there simply aren't enough psychiatric beds, rehab centers, or affordable clinics to meet the overwhelming demand. Imagine trying to recover from addiction or severe depression while living in a tent under a freeway. Without stable care, recovery is nearly impossible. This lack of infrastructure doesn't just fail individuals. It overwhelms emergency rooms, clogs court systems, and drains billions of taxpayer dollars each year. Experts argue that the homelessness crisis will never be solved by housing alone. Housing is critical, but without wraparound services, mental health care, counseling, addiction treatment, and job training, most people won't be able to rebuild their lives. California's current system provides short-term relief, but rarely offers the long-term stability people desperately need. Until serious investments are made in rehabilitation and mental health infrastructure, thousands will continue to slip right back into homelessness, no matter how many shelters or temporary housing units are built. Number 10. The hidden cost of inequality. At the root of California's homelessness crisis lies something bigger than housing costs, mental health, or addiction. It's the deep economic inequality woven into the fabric of the state. California is home to Silicon Valley billionaires, Hollywood celebrities, and luxury mansions worth hundreds of millions. Yet just blocks away, thousands of people sleep in tents, under bridges, or on sidewalks. It's a state of extremes, unimaginable wealth on one side, crushing poverty on the other. This divide is not just about numbers, it's about access. Those with resources can buy homes, pay for health care, and shield themselves from financial shocks. But for the working poor, even a small setback, like losing a job, getting sick, or facing an unexpected bill, can trigger a rapid slide into homelessness. And once that happens, the gap between the haves and the have-nots grows even wider. In California, the safety nets are too weak to catch those who fall, and inequality keeps pushing more people off the edge. What makes this reason so powerful is that it ties all the others together: skyrocketing rents, the lack of affordable housing, broken systems, untreated mental illness, addiction, and job insecurity. All of them are symptoms of a deeper imbalance. Until California confronts the reality of inequality, homelessness will continue to grow, no matter how much money is spent on short-term fixes. The truth is, solving this crisis requires more than policy. It requires a cultural shift in how society values fairness, opportunity, and basic human dignity. California's homelessness crisis is not the result of one single problem, but a storm of overlapping forces: skyrocketing housing costs, lack of affordable units, untreated mental illness, addiction, low wages, broken systems, and deep inequality. Each of these factors pushes people closer to the edge, and once they fall, climbing back up becomes almost impossible. What's most alarming is how this issue doesn't just affect those on the streets, it ripples into entire communities. Businesses close, neighborhoods decline, crime rises, and public trust erodes. In other words, homelessness isn't just a them problem, it's an us problem. This crisis has been decades in the making, and without serious changes, it will only continue to grow. But if California is willing to address root causes, not just treat the symptoms, there is hope. Other cities and countries have shown that solutions exist, but they require bold action, strong leadership, and the courage to prioritize people over politics. The truth is clear: homelessness is not unsolvable, but it demands that we act now. So, what can actually be done to turn this crisis around? The first step is addressing housing supply and affordability. California must streamline building processes, ease zoning restrictions, and invest in large-scale, affordable housing projects. Without enough homes, no other solution will stick. Rent stabilization and tenant protections can also prevent more families from being pushed onto the streets. Second, there needs to be a dramatic expansion of mental health and addiction treatment services. This means more psychiatric facilities, more rehab centers, and more community-based programs that don't just offer temporary relief but provide long-term recovery. Housing alone is not enough. People need wraparound support to rebuild their lives. Third, the state must close the gaps in foster care and prison. Re-entry systems, transitional housing, job training, and mentorship programs can prevent vulnerable populations from falling into homelessness the moment they leave these institutions. By catching people at these crossroads, California can break the cycle before it begins. Finally, tackling inequality is essential. That means raising wages, expanding access to health care, and ensuring that the wealth of the state benefits more than just a small fraction. Homelessness won't end overnight, but by combining affordable housing, mental health services, prevention programs, and fairer economic policies, California can take real steps toward lasting change. The lesson is simple: temporary fixes won't work. Long-term systemic solutions are the only way forward. We put an incredible amount of effort into making these videos, and your support helps us keep going. So if this opened your eyes, please subscribe to our channel. It's just one click. Don't forget to drop a comment and tell us what solution you think California needs most. And before you go, make sure to watch our previous video. It dives even deeper into issues shaping our world today.